to my channel. It's a miserable, grim day out there, but a fantastic day to stay cosy indoors and get on with my project. If you've seen my video on Whippets, my Willow Whippets wardrobe, then you'll know that I'm doing a project for a matching jacket for us both. And this is the fabric, the gorgeous fabric that I'm using, which is from Minerva. It's a fleece. It's quite a thick fleece as well. So there will be some adaptations that I make throughout, because the particular jacket that I've picked is normally linen, which is a lot thinner. So things like facings and stuff I'll be making a change on. But I'll talk that through as I go through it. The pattern is Berda 7700, and the jacket that I'm making is E. It's there with a hood. Comes with full instructions. You get them on each side for each type of jacket that you're making. The sizing, obviously this says size 12 to 24. It's not what you think it is. It's not like a UK size 12 to 24. I mean, I'm a size 16, 18. And on here, when I've measured myself by my bust, I'm going to be using size 22. I could get away with 20, but with it being a jacket for going out dog walking, I wanted plenty of room, and I might want to wear a cardigan or a jumper underneath it. So I've gone for, and I quite like them big anyway, so I've gone for a bigger size. I've already cut the pattern pieces, and then within there it gives you ideas for, well, it tells you how you should lay out your fabric depending on the size of your fabric. Mine was, I think, 140 something, so that it's the end one I'm using. So I'm laying out all my fabric pieces like that, and then I've already got cut out my tissue patterns ready. So shall we get cracking? It's exciting, isn't it? Yee. Okay, so I've cut out all my pieces according to the pattern instructions, and I've got my instructions ready. You'll find when you're looking at this particular pattern, it takes you down telling you all of the instructions for all the different makes, and then when you very first start sewing, it's talking about jacket A and C. I'm doing E. So when you turn it over and you get to your jacket E, it then tells you what to do from there. So actually on this one it just says as described and illustrated in step 1. So I would go and do step 1 first, which is going to be my darts, and that's on here. So you can see that's my line, which is the size I've chosen, 22. Nothing to do with my real dress size, it's just the size patterns do. I've cut out all of my little notches, so I'm going to do that first and then go on from there. So what I've done is from my mark there, I've done a chalk line right way across, and then those notches meet up, and you should find that you've got a straight line across there as well. Now I have got some gold threads, but I'm going to just opt for plain black. So I need to fill up my bobbin, set up my machine and get these darts done. because this is a stretch knit, it's got a little stretch to it, so I'm using a stretch stitch. So just to mention, on this one I'm sewing up the back seam now, so I've lined everything up. It's a stretch stitch again. Seam allowance is 1.5 inch, and I'm just going to let it pull through the fabric itself with it being stretched, so it doesn't gather and catch. It does say that after we've stitched them together, that we turn it the other way, top stitch either side, capturing the seam, or zigzag. I haven't made up my mind which one I'm going to do yet, so I'm just going to get started on this. No point me going all the way on this one, because with it being a stretch stitch it will take a while, so I'll come back to you when I've done all of this. So we're here on number 10, where it's telling us about basting, stitching the centre seam, and then it does say about neatening the allowances together, pressing to one side. Because I'm using fleece and it's not a fabric that frays, and it's quite thick, if I pull this to one side, it's just going to be too thick. So for me, I think I'm going to do it like that, and then top stitch on the other side, probably with a zigzag, because it'd be easier and quicker just to go down the centre seam and do a zigzag. Right, I did a little test for zigzag, and going through I always do a test, going through the double fabric, which I'd need to do, and it's not working. But to be honest, because I'm using fleece and the particular jacket in question is linen normally, I don't think I really need it, because it's just not going to fray the type of fabric that it is. So I'm going to leave it as is. Any problems later on I'll fix it, but I can't see how. I've never had to do that before, even on a linen dress, to be honest. But I'm going to move on. So I'm doing the shoulder seams next. Front right sides together with back, basting shoulder seams, and then stitching them together. It does say to top stitch the seams again as described. Not going to do that. I'm going to skip that step. So this is right sides together. Sorry, wrong sides together. I'm going to turn these the other way around, just to get the right sides left and right on the back. So I'm going to turn this the other way around so it's right sides together, and stitch across both of these shoulder seams. That seems a little bit rushed to you. Just bear in mind that this is a project for playtime. So this is part of a double outfit with Willow for us to have our dog walks in, and just enjoy ourselves. And I won't care if it gets, if she jumps up at me or other dogs jump up. Won't matter if it smells of dog biscuits. It will save my best coats. Right, next. So the front facings next. Just a quick note on here on the instructions for the one that I'm doing, E. Again, because they're assuming a linen fabric, they've included interfacing that you would iron on normally onto the wrong side of these front facings. Again, I don't need the interfacing. I don't need that because this isn't a soft floppy fabric, it's fleece. So I'm not bothering with any iron-on interfacing. I'm just going to attach these as they are and it'll be absolutely fine, she says. Okay, so got the front facing part of the jacket right side up. Then we've got the facing, what they call the facing, which goes along the side of the front edge. There's two of these, so I've got another one that's just going to go on the other side. They go right sides together, and for now I'm just going to baste all the way down here and then the same on the other side. Baste is just a temporary hand stitch that we do. Okay, it's starting to look like a top. Got the front facings basted on. I'm a little bit worried that with this thickness of this material, that when I do come to finish this, my machine isn't going to cope with more than 2 layers of fabric. So these might have to come off and then me hem or put some binding on the edges, but I'll see how it goes. I could probably do before I start on the hood, because the hood has to be attached beforehand before I start stitching this. I think what I'll do is I'll put a test fabric through and see how the sewing machine works with it, and if it's going to struggle, then I'm going to take these off. I'm not going to use facings. Right, I've done a test with 4 pieces of fabric and it seems fine, so I'm going to go ahead and start on the hood. I am going to be sewing the curved bit all the way around, so it's just all the way around this bit where it's curved. Okay, that's the hood across there. So next steps is to hem this side bit. This is the bit that's going to go on to the actual jacket. Now it does say to baste, so basically we're going to be folding it in on itself, and it does say to do a zigzag stitch. I already know that the zigzag doesn't cope and pull this fabric through, so I'm just going to do a normal stretch stitch. Nearly missed a step. Before I can do the hem, I need to tidy this up, the seam inside. Don't want it just flapping around like that because it is the hood and you will see it. So again, in the pattern it suggests to fold into one side and then on the top doing top stitch. Not keen, doesn't look very tidy with this material, so I'm going to do it that way, and then I'm going to top stitch, if I can, 2 fancy patterns on either side. Like I say, my machine just isn't coping very well with the zigzag on this fabric, but we'll see how that goes. So my seam allowance is just under 2 centimetres on either side under here. You can just feel that. So I'm going to top stitch a centimetre on either side of the centre seam just to hold that back in place, and it'll hopefully look like a nice little pattern, a nice feature. Okay, done. That's the top stitch, the hood, and that's the inside. So I'm probably going to just neaten these up a little bit, and then we're on to hemming. Okay, so I've pinned my hem. Now the instructions suggest this is how the way that you do it. It's a raw edge, and then it's top stitched close to the edge here, and then a centimetre away, and then they're saying zigzag in between. Well, I'm not going to zigzag because it don't work well. Don't quite like the idea of this being raw on the inside, but I have ordered some fair trim, some black fair, and I'm thinking anyway that I'm going to put a fair, like a little fair lining on the collar for a bit of fun, just to spice it up. So it's not going to make much difference because it'll sort of be like a binding, the fair trim round here that will go around it. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch close to the edge, and then a centimetre in, and then that's it for now, for the hood, until the fair trim arrives. Just moving on to the second bit. So I've done the top stitch close to the edge, and then I'm doing a centimetre in, which on my machine is this 3/8 line there. Okay, that is the hood ready to be attached. Sorry about the noise in the background. That's Willow with her piggy that she got for Christmas. So that's not too bad on the inside, but like I say, I've ordered some fair trim, so I'm going to make that, I'm going to bind it with the fair, and it'll look quite funky. Okay, next is attach it to the jacket. Just to show you, that is the back seam, so that's the back of the jacket there, matched up with the hood, right sides together, and then match the notches from the pattern with the shoulder seams there, and then literally going to work this round, basting it, pin it and then baste it right to the edge, and you'll find that this seam allowance should, when it's all pinned and everything, it should overhang there. That's the front facing, just so you get an idea of where it's up to. So we'll be going up to there, both sides. Okay, that's the hood all pinned in across the next seam, and matched the centre seam, and then there were a couple of notches to match with the shoulder seams there, and there. So I'm going to baste it now, because it'll need to be basted again with the facing, and the way that it folds in before you stitch it. It will be stitching the hood and then going down the facing and down the front of the jacket, so it does need basting first. So I'll crack on with that. Hood is now basted onto the neckline all the way across here. So there's the hood. This is the front of the jacket here, and that is the front facing. So obviously we've got two on one either side. So on the instructions, the facing will come forward, but it comes to neaten that out. It comes over like that, and then I'm going to baste it here, across here on the neckline there. And I do that on both sides, and then it's on to the next step. Okay, everything's basted together there. So we're now going to stitch all the way across the facing, front facing, across the hood, stitching the neckline to the hood, all the way across to the end. Just be careful when you're doing this that you've not got any bumpy folds. I mean, it will be bumpy because you've got your hood under there, but fleece can sort of quickly hide a little bubble, and before you know it, you're in trouble and unpicking it all, which isn't good fun. Okay, so that's all stitched on. So from the inside, I'm going to press this down, and then on the other side we'll top stitch within 1 centimetre so it captures all of this here. You see that? So it's quite a lot to catch in, but we'll do that by a top stitch about 1 centimetre in. It'll just pull all of this down, keep it nice and neat and tidy. Got a couple of bits to trim on these corners. They're going to be trimmed off. That's all on the instructions as well. Trim that corner. You can trim these as well, because they're not going to fray, just to neaten them. Get in there. Get in there. Yay. So one side done, onto the other side. Right, so hood all stitched across, and the facings have all been stitched down the front. We're going to trim off the corners on both sides. I've already done the first one. That's so that when we turn it the right side, there's not much bulk. I'm also going to trim these, get all these trimmed down, and then what happens, I'll just show you what I'll be doing. We turn it this way so that the facing is on the inside, and this seam from the hood to the back, sorry if you can see that, that's going to be pressed down, and the way to keep it down is to top stitch on this side, on the right side, about 1 centimetre all the way across. So that'll flatten this, but it'll also capture this to keep this down so it's not flapping about. Normally you'd neaten the allowances first, but I don't want to leave any, you know, if it goes over 1 centimetre. So I'm going to do the top stitch first, then I'll come back and trim all of these bits at the bottom. Okay, so I'll crack on with that and I'll come back to you when I've done that bit, when I'm ready to top stitch. Just to point out as a guide, I'm 1 centimetre in on the top stitch. So my line here where the seam of the hood joins the back to where the needle is, that's 1 centimetre. So it actually quite nicely lines up with the end of the foot. So that's my guide. I'm going to keep the seam with the end of the foot, and that'll be 1 centimetre in for my top stitch. That's the next step done, all top stitched all the way across. And then I've neatened it in the inside. I haven't done the best of jobs on the inside, but I've just neatened that up. It's because it's so thick and there's a lot of layers, and my machine didn't cut too well, but it's done it. It's there. The hood is on. Right, I think we're moving on to the pockets. Just moving on to the pockets. So I've not done pockets like this before, so I thought I'd talk it through with you and then it might make sense to me. I've got my pocket pieces. Now normally I would have cut out 4 of these and had a pocket pouch that sits inside. That's how I've always done pockets. On this one, and I did notice this when I was cutting out the pattern had a stitch line on the front. This is the front panel of the jacket. And I did think at the time, why is that there? Well, why it is because you only get 1 pocket piece and it's going to stitch onto here. So you get a pouch that, let's just line that up there. So you get a pouch that you actually stitch onto the front of here, so you'll have stitch markings on there. I'm not keen on the idea, but it is a dog walking jacket, and do I want to start faffing about at this point making what I would consider as a proper pocket? Not really. I think if I do this again, I would bother. I'd do 4, because part of dog walking, you need your pockets. You put all sorts in there. So having that extra piece would give me an awful lot more space. As it is now, as if it's stitched on here, if I put a ball in there, you're really going to see it. It's going to poke at the front. But, you know, I mean, it's a little bit late in the day at the moment, so I'm just going to continue with the pattern as it is. So what the instructions are is on the front piece first, you will have had some markings to make some notches. So you cut your notches already cut, but you do it for your base, for your seam allowance. Fold it inside, baste it, and then top stitch it 1 centimetre across on the other side. And then your pocket's gonna go on. So I just wanted to talk you through it first. This is gonna line up with the pattern. So try to get the notches in place, putting my notches all in place with the pattern. Just level it up at the bottom, and there. So it'll need to sort of straighten up a bit. I'm going to have to faff about with that and just get it in the right spot before, because with the stitching being on the front, obviously you want it to look equal on both sides. I'm not doing it like this again. It's too faffy. Yeah, you see, I've got to level that out. That's a pain. Right. Okay. So basically, with the notches there. That's how the pocket will sit on there. And then it's near enough a straight line. Yeah, it is. It's a straight line. So to make it easy, I'm just going to measure down and there, so I know it's straight. Then I'm going to pin it. And just to note that if you're thinking your pocket's too big, there's your stitch line is your seam allowance. So obviously you are going to have an overlap. So when you'll stitch your seam allowance all the way around as a top stitch. So to keep it neat, it'll have to be top stitched from the other side. So we're going to have to mark it out carefully so I know where this pocket is. Gosh, this is faffy and awkward. I'll do the top stitching on there first, pin my pocket in place, and then I'll come back to you. Right, what I've done, top stitched as I needed to, that was the front piece, and then I've matched up my notches on here, lined up this so it's equal there, so it's a straight line, pinned it, and then basted it. Now, because we're going to be sewing this pocket on the front as a top stitch, I need to mark out where I'm going to stitch. Otherwise, I'm just feeling for a seam allowance. So I thought what I'd do is use the pocket piece and then pop it on. Let's get that the right way. There's my notches. Match it up with my notches. Sort of get a feel for where my fabric is. Measure it out again. And then I'm going to draw round this. So I've got my pocket and I know where it is. And then I'm going to draw my seam allowance 1.5 centimeters in. So when I go on here, I know exactly where I'm stitching. That's the only way I can think of doing it. It doesn't give you any instructions on here of how to do that easily. It just tells you to stitch the pocket on. So yeah, I'll get on with that and come back. I don't know if you can see that, but I've marked out where the pocket is, and then I've done the seam allowance 1.5 centimeters inside, which takes me to there. If ever I have another pattern where it shows just 2 pockets, that's going to raise alarm bells now, and I'm going to change it so that I do a pocket pouch, 4 pieces, make my own pocket on the inside, because this is too faffy. I think it's going to be a lot more simpler, but if you want it to look nice and neat on the outside, I'm going to have to top stitch it right in place and make it equal on both sides. So this is pocket number 1. I'm going to sort this one out and then move on to the next pocket. Just coming to the end, it does say to start at the bottom and work your way to the top marking and stitch across there, the top, that bit of top stitching, and then just to secure the bottom bit as well. So I'm going to crack on and do that. I did not find that easy, but I've done it. So the next step is the next pocket, and then we're moving on to the sleeves. Just getting ready to pin the sleeves on. So you have a centre notch on your sleeve pattern that goes to the centre seam, or your shoulder seam, sorry, and then you've got a notch to match up there, and then you're going to ease, because it's, whoops, let's just show you that there and there, you'll see there's a little bit of bagginess. You have to lots and lots of pins to ease it all in, because it's a sleeve and it curves around. And then we'll do the same to the end, that side, lots and lots of pins and ease it in. I'll see what it looks like. I'll either baste it or just go straight to the sewing machine with it. Depends how well it sits. So I pinned that sleeve on lots and lots of pins. Might feel like there's more material on the sleeve than there is on the armhole, and that's because it's going over a shoulder, it's on a bend, so you kind of just have to manipulate it, and then lots and lots of pins to hold it all in place. So I'm going to put that through the machine. I've already done the first sleeve, so I've done one. This is the second one. That's the sleeves on. Ta-da! The next thing, and now it does say actually that you should top stitch either side, a little bit like what we did with the hood, and the centre of the hood there. I quite like the sleeve like that, just plain, and the inside, with it being this material, I can just trim this right down. So I mean, I could put it through my overlocker, but for what I'm using this for, I think I'll just trim that down because I quite like that as it is. I think that's quite nice and smart. So that's that bit. Next, keep sending you to and fro on these instructions, but I believe next I'm going to be actually attaching, well, I know that I am going to be doing it. I don't know why I'm even looking at that. So I'm going to be now attaching the sleeves and the side seam. So we will have an arm and the side seams all joined together, and then I've still got my pink chalk on there. And just to mention that when we come to the pocket bit, we just got to make sure that we don't catch that and stitch up the pocket. Right, so I'm going to pin it all together, and then I'll get on with stitching. Should be able to see it now. That's the arm. I've pinned it all the way across, nice and easy. And then where it's come to the pocket, I've changed the pin direction just to tell me that I need to make sure I don't capture the pocket there, otherwise I won't be able to put my hands in. Okay, so I'm going to stitch this up and then do the other side exactly the same, and then I'll be moving on to hemming the sleeves and hemming the bottom. So we're nearly there. So I've finished doing all the way up that seam, up the arm, down the side, and just to show you what the pocket now looks like, there. So when you've got it, I might man with pins, when you've got it that way, what I do is as I'm pouring it through, I put my hand underneath and pull that pocket away so that it doesn't get caught in the machine, and that's what you get. So that looks quite neat. It's not bad, is it? All right, it does again, it suggests, or rather says, that you'll want to top stitch. Let's turn the arm inside out, see what that looks like. And top stitch again, but I actually like it as it is. I don't want to. I will tidy up the insides later, get all the loose ends and everything. Okay, next side. bit easier this side because the pocket's there. You can see it on this side. So what I've done is I've shoved some pins to push that away in the pocket so it don't get caught when I'm stitching across here. Alright, so let's finish this last side. There we go. Pocket number 2. On to hem the sleeves. Hemming on this one is a top stitch. So I've folded the seam allowance under, prepared my machine for my sleeves, and the top stitch is going to be 1 centimetre through all the way around. I'm coming up to the final bits. I just mentioned if you keep seeing different sleeves, it's because I don't have time to do all of these things in one day. I have to do them over time. I work full time. So yeah, you'll see you'll see different clothes on my arms. We're doing the hemline at the bottom. Now on the pattern it gives you a hem fold line there. It actually just tells you it's 5 centimetres deep. So you're going to fold the fabric up 5 centimetres, and then we'll fold the facings in. Let's just show you that bit. So once that's been lifted up on this front bit, once that's all folded up, we'll fold that in, back in, so that it's like that again. So we're folding the facing back in. So I'm going to baste that, just neaten it up, baste it, and then it gets stitched on the inside at 4 centimetres up. Hang on, is it on the inside? No, it's not. On that side, 4 centimetres up, so that you catch that in, because that's 5 centimetres, so you catch that. And then I am going to top stitch, so you top stitch 1 centimetre across all the way, just to neaten it, make it look nice. And then we'll be moving on to the button, which you'll be glad to know isn't a buttonhole. It's a fake button and a clasp, which I'm really happy about because I don't like buttonholes. But anyway, onwards. Gosh, this is getting close. It's getting close. Yay! Right, that is how it looks when you've done your folding line and then basted the facing back on the inside. So turning it over now, I'm going to top stitch, or rather, sorry, I'm just going to, top stitch 4 centimetres up, and then top stitch 1 centimetre, and hopefully we'll nearly have a finished jacket. Ta-da! Top stitching, it's all done. Lovely. I'm really pleased with it. I've gone a little bit slight. I will tell you my little errors. I went a little bit skew with. Wasn't in the hem. It must have been early on, and maybe in the fabric cutting or the pocket. There's a slight difference there. It's gone a little bit skew-iff. But once it's on, you won't really see that much. I'll wash off all this pink chalk when I'm ready, but it's to do position and put on the button. There is a place on the pattern to tell you where to put the button. I just like to decide where I put my own button, thank you very much. Now it's a fake button with little clasps. So I'm going to have mine near the top, around about there-ish. There. So it's like little press studs, little clip together, and then I bought a fancy button just to sew on top. So it will be sort of like a jacket, cape type of jacket. It's a big one, so that I can wear jumpers underneath it, because it is only one layer of fleece. And then if I do want to later think, now I want this to stay closed, so it's not like a wrappy coat, I'll either get some more press studs and fake buttons, or just some hook and eyes. Probably be press studs and fake buttons. I quite like the idea of that. Looks like I've put some real effort into it, putting buttons on. So that's only, don't need the machine for that. Oh, that's an empty bag. I'll just find my button and I'll show you the one I've chosen. Isn't that cute? It's quite sparkly. What do you think? These come in a pack of 3. So I can put more on if I want to. I've got some nice big chunky ones. So I'm going to put one on my button, wash off or wipe off the chalk, and then I'm going to put it on and show you. Yes! What do you think? Get my button. Tickety. I haven't ironed it yet or washed off the chalk, so it's still a little bit creased and baggy, so it needs pressing. But it's lovely, big, comfy. I can put a big jumper under this. It's snuggly. I still might fair line this. I might put some fair around it. I haven't made my mind up yet. I think it might look a bit too much. But anyway, that's it. I'm so glad I finished it. So next, I'm making Willow one. I'm making Willow, not one like this, but I'm making a dog coat for Willow. So that's part 2. I know this was a long video, but thank you so much. If you please would like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please click on the subscribe notifications to get the next video. So until then, ta-da!